The inflatable flamingo floated placidly in the shallow end of the pool, and when the wail of police sirens cut through summer haze and Diane, sweat-drenched and bubbling with righteous indignation, shrieked, "She's not even a resident." Barefoot on my patio, lemonade pitcher in hand, I stood my ground with the officer and said, "Actually, I own this whole block, including her home." Diane's jaw dropped faster than her concocted HOA rules ever could. What began as an easy pool party, paper lanterns, folding chairs, children with dripping popsicle shade, spiraled into a confrontation that would uncover a petty despot and redefine our neighborhood. Buckle up. Because this story of control resistance and reclaimed peace is a wild ride. It was an idyllic July afternoon, and I'd spent a week organizing the party. Nothing over the top, just friends. A few longtime tenants and neighbors who knew how to live and let live. The music was lively but muted, barely audible beyond my yard, unless someone was hunting for trouble, and Diane, my tenant at 114 Maple Grove, was always hunting since she'd moved in. She'd strutted around like a self-appointed sheriff, armed with a clipboard and fake community violation notices she stuffed in mailboxes. There was no HOA in our neighborhood, but Diane didn't need real authority. She invented it that day. She stormed up to my gate in her signature look. Sun visor, oversized sunglasses, and a flower clipboard grasped like a religious relic. "This is a blatant disruption of community peace," she stated, standing firm by my roses as if they belonged to her. I sipped my lemonade, unflappable. "Diane, we've been through this. There's no HOA here." I extended an invitation, but she brushed the offer aside, glaring at my guest splashing in the pool, complaining about regulations. She stormed off 5 minutes later, her voice shrieked through her open window, loud enough to hear her 911 call. Loud music, underage drinking, unlicensed, gathering emergency. My neighbor across the street, rolling his eyes, gave me a knowing shrug. Diane had a history last month. She'd called the cops over a misplaced garden gnome before that, a barbecue she deemed illegal past 8 p.m., but this time she'd misjudged her target. My house wasn't just my home. I was the heart of a block my grandfather constructed in the 70s. When he died, I inherited all property, quietly leasing them out at reasonable prices to good families. I did not brag about it, but I was not going to be bullied on my property. When the patrol vehicle pulled up, 2 officers approached with impartial faces. Diane, flailing like a traffic cop, took the lead. "That's her," she spat. "She's been disturbing the peace all day. I pay taxes for protection, your job." The officer looked at me. "Ma'am, do you reside here?" I smiled and handed him my ID. "I do, and I own this residence, that one, those 2, and hers." I gestured down the street like a tour guide. Diane braked her sunglasses. Slipping, the younger officer coughed to suppress a laugh. "You own her house?" The older one asked. "I'm her landlord." I affirmed the silence was exquisite. "Even the flamingo appearing to halt its drift. No laws violated here," the officer explained. "Just a house party on private property. No other noise call." Diane sputtered. "This ain't right." "She gives the HOA," I titled my head. "There is no HOA, Diane, but you can join us. Peach cobbler's inside." The officers went away, and Diane stood shaking, her embarrassment perceptible. My guest chuckled softly, and I turned around. Let her stew. What she didn't know was that I'd been chronicling each phony notice, each skirmish, every doorbell camera clip. Her lease was up in a month, and I had other plans that night as tiki torches were extinguished. I sat with a folder full of evident screenshots of Diane's emails, photos of trash cans. She'd relocated to cite a letter she'd written a tenant accusing their teen of noise violations for playing acoustic guitar at sunset. I put up with her for a year, at first thinking she was just overly zealous, but her mask had slipped quickly. She'd sent HOA notices official, appearing with fabricated rule numbers, finding a senior couple to put in the garden gnomes, and informing children they were required to get a permit for a lemonade stand, a permit in a community that didn't have an HOA. Her fixation wasn't about order. It was about control, a grasping attempt for significance. Her lease, signed a year ago, hadn't had any renewal. Clausy preventive measure I'd taken with 26 days remaining. It was time to terminate her reign. The following morning I strolled the block checking for harm at 116 new renters, waved their door free of signs at 118. Mrs. Larson's ceramic ducks remained unscathed. Diane had previously attempted to locate her for reflective wind chimes. The Jenkins household at 120 indicated Diane's latest escapade. Laminated signs posted on telephone poles proclaiming neighborhood enforcement areas with bans on music water play and unauthorized trim. One warned off fireworks with clip, heart of a slashed firecracker warning HOA leadership fines. I almost laughed at it. Leadership was Diane and her cat. I typed a lease expiration notice, stuck it in an envelope, and handed it myself. Diane responded in a boss lady mug and curlers grabbing the letter. "You're evicting me," she gasped. "I'm not renewing your lease," I corrected. "You've caused tension where there was peace." She slammed the door. Relief, not victory, washed over. Metis was about defending my tenants that afternoon. Diane struck back glossy HOA violation notices, popped up on all the doors citing me for too many aquatic parties, and visual blight from the flamingo. Tenants got hit too, one for a hammock, another for a non-uniform mailbox same as mine. The Jenkins kids were cited for sidewalk chalk, referred to as unapproved public art. She was doubling down on her make-believe HOA neon flyers, followed stapled to poles, and taped to stop signs proclaiming a mandatory HOA meeting in the cul-de-sac to address enforcement and non-compliance consequences. Snacks that were offered dress code respectful. I had two options, ignore her or fight her publicly. I opted for the latter. Saturday morning, I showed up with a clipboard and camp chair sunglasses on battle ready. A few neighbors and tenants joined curious Diane's cousin, enlisted from a different block, pulled out a coffee pot like a break room. In return, Diane stood behind a folding table full of self-printed rulebooks and baskets marked fines and appeals. She greeted the audience with an eerie grin, reading from a script regarding the HOA board, non-existent, and regulations such as restricting parties to one per season and restricting noise to 65 decibels after 4 p.m. When someone questioned how she would monitor it, she waved her phone's decibel app. Another demanded legal justification. "The neighborhood has an informal covenant," she asserted. I raised my hand, her eyes tightened. "Yes." "Sarah Mitchell," she stated, voice strained. I stood. "There's no HOA here. I own majority of these houses, and nobody signed any covenant. You're imposing personal preference, which is deceptive and harassing." Murmur spread. Her cousin checked his mobile. Diane's face reamed. You can't dismiss community spirit." She snapped. "Spirit. Don't need bogus fines or intimidation," I retorted, brandishing my folder of proof. "I've forwarded this to the city mediator, keep on going, and it's a legal concern," she advanced verbally. "Are you threatening me?" "No," I said, "I'm stating facts. You've crossed a property line." Silence fell. People left quietly. Her cousin folding the table, Diane gripped it like a lifeline. I walked home tired but lighter. The spell was breaking. Then came the fence one morning. I woke to hammering and a drill's whine. Diane had erected a hideous white plastic fence slicing through shared easements and curving into the street. She stood smugly behind it, directing handymen. It was illegal. No permit, no survey obstructing the sidewalk. I had called my lawyer, sent pics, and served her a notice with demands for its removal within 5 days or else face legal action. Diane waved hello when I took her photo, then scowled when she realized I was on my phone. 2 days later, I noticed cameras, black domes atop her roof, one pointing at my yard, others at neighbors' driveways. The group chat blew up. Someone spotted her citing license plates she'd made up community monitoring policy when challenged. I wanted to rub ketchup into the cameras, but stood my ground. Diane flourished on disorder. Alternatively, I took out my nephew's drone, set it to fly round and round the block, and blasted her 911 call from its speaker, blaring music disturbance. Neighbors had a chuckle. Kids ran round and after it, and Diane, with a broom, threatened, swung, toppling her own fence panel. The drone video went viral on a neighborhood meme site, notching 5,000 hits. Diane stayed hidden inside her cameras pulled from their outlets. Her last act was at HOA Gala in her backyard. Me property announced with glittery flyers promising awards such as Most Compliant Resident. The lease prohibited unapproved parties. But Diane didn't care. Saturday afternoon, as she prepared in a gold shawl and plastic crown, I came with movers and a notice of violations warning that an unauthorized party equaled immediate eviction. "You're humiliating me," she wailed as guests began to arrive. I'm restoring sanity, I responded. A chair tipped, knocking over her patched fence. Someone muttered, Is this the gala? I broke up the party, fizzled lights down by dusk, with 14 days remaining. Diane pulled a phony move, parking a truck to clog driveways and screaming about abusive landlords. Then she posted my house online as available to rent under a phony company, requiring cash and HOA toy approval. A cease and desist put it out of business. Her cousin assisted packing her cherub statues, and she sent pink farewell gala invites, referring herself a legend in her own time. I sent a paralegal to keep an eye on Diane's words, and a chairperson's sash in a neighborhood hinted at discrimination. Her eyes on my home. It didn't matter. Her story was hers alone on her last day. Real movers arrived. Diane, clipboard and crown removed, gave silent orders. She departed without a wave. The house with lavender scent cleaner. No graffiti, just emptiness. I stood on her porch, keys in hand, feeling calm, not victory, but peace. I put up a now leasing sign with calm tenants, only in fine print. Neighbors snickered. A new family came to visit the house days later, their kids laughing in the yard. It feels peaceful. The dad said, I approved their application at a second pool party with the flamingo. Still afloat, we celebrated freedom. I gave a short community isn't control, it's respect. Standing up quietly can be louder than shouting. A note in my mailbox read, Thank you for standing strong. We remembered how to be neighbors. A new sign at the cul-de-sac said, Private community respect courage. Peace required no HOA, just a neighborhood earned through quiet resolve. Diane believed she owned the block, but I held the deeds.